will never condone or associate with his conduct and behavior on the internet. I let him know men don't argue in beef behind a mic on the internet. Real men move in silence.
He's not no tough guy. Like, he's a rapper. So just because you did whatever you did in the streets, you never did nothing. You never was no none of that. You was a dude that was doing your little ones and twos, and you became a rapper.
For 25 long years, one question has been floating in the streets like smoke. Who really shot 50 Cent back in 2000?
I have the resilience to go against anybody. Like, there's nobody that's too ill. Those are the guys that you would choose not to go against at that point. It's in the environment, and it's not him individually, because everybody's greater in their absence than they are in their presence. His aura is stronger than he is.
Every corner conversation turned into rumors, wild guesses, and 50's own version of what went down. But now, the man people been pointing at for decades, Supreme McGriff, is finally speaking from behind bars, and he's not doing it for some emotional moment or to clear his soul.
I know they had to have something to do with it, and they come to find out that the dudes who did it was working for Murder Inc.
He's talking because the timing fits his plan, and he wants to own the story before anyone else flips it. Supreme isn't stepping up because he feels bad or wants forgiveness. This is about control, power, and making sure his name gets handled how he wants it to be handled.
Different. We are masters of self-defense. If you ain't talking about positivity or growth and goals, keep your mouth shut. That goes for everybody.
Meanwhile, 50 Cent recently opened up again about the day everything almost ended for him, dropping details about May 24th, 2000, when a shooting in Jamaica, Queens left him hit 9 times and fighting to stay alive. The whole situation still feels unreal, like a scene straight out of a movie, and now the man tied to it all is finally talking loud enough for the world to hear. When 50 looks back now, he says that moment didn't just change him, it rebuilt him. That near-fatal day pushed him out of the streets and blasted him straight toward the global spotlight.
Music in '96, 2000, about to release an album. What happens?
Oh, but I was shot
9 times.
Yeah.
And the album goes by, and you're fighting for survival.
Yeah, and it became a part of. It shifted my concept.
He explained that right after the incident, music wasn't even on his mind at all. All he could think about was staying alive, not becoming famous. At that time, he wasn't only fighting to physically recover, he was fighting to stay in the game because the industry wanted nothing to do with him. Labels stepped back, business deals vanished, and doors that were once open got slammed shut in his face. So he had to carve his own lane, even with fresh wounds across his face, chest, legs, and hands. He hit the underground hard and turned G-Unit into a full movement that the streets couldn't ignore. And within just 2 years, that non-stop grind finally paid off. Eminem and Shady Records showed up ready to sign him, and in 2003, Get Rich or Die Trying dropped.
The numbers, Get Rich or Die Trying. We had a short first week, right? And it came back. It was like 830-something thousand records, and I was like, and then we didn't have the decrease that you would have. That meant they undershipped it because there wouldn't be that 60% or that 30% decrease. It would be there.
And everything shifted overnight. Suddenly, the same guy the industry tried to push out was now one of the biggest names in rap. His rise was massive, the success was real, but even with all the fame and fortune that came after, the case behind that shooting still sits officially unsolved to this day, and the list of possible suspects has always been long, messy, and full of drama. Back in the early 2000s, 50 Cent was an underground problem. The streets knew him from his mixtapes, but nobody realized he was about to blow up in a major way. At the same time, Murder Inc. was running the charts with Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, Ashanti, and the whole squad locking down the industry.
For every album, wasn't there because the following week it came in with a whole nother 800 or something thousand. I was on a bus, I was riding, I remember I was like, yeah, this is never gonna feel like this again. I knew it. I'm by myself. And back of the bus we was riding, and I said, this is never gonna feel like this again. And I knew to really enjoy the moment.
But something about 50's energy rubbed Irv and Ja the wrong way. And the music world was still shaky from the East Coast-West Coast drama, even if things had cooled a little. Then 1999 hit and Ja Rule got robbed in Southside Jamaica. Not by 50 himself, but by someone connected to his circle. That moment changed everything. Ja was becoming Murder Inc.'s superstar, and 50 was just starting to build real buzz in New York, so the streets began whispering. That same year, 50 dropped Your Life's on the Line, taking straight-up shots at Ja Rule, and the beef went from smoke to fire real quick. It didn't take long before things got physical.
But McGriff Jr. didn't stop there. He later went off on 50 in an interview, calling him weak and saying he was never a street dude.
He's not no tough guy. Like, he's a rapper. So just because you did whatever you did in the streets, you never did nothing. You never was none of that. You was a dude that was doing your little ones and twos, and you became a rapper.
The next year, 50 and Ja crossed paths at a nightclub in Atlanta. Words flew, fists flew, and from that moment, both camps were locked in as full-on enemies. The tension doubled, then tripled, because neither side was backing down. Then came March 2000, when everything exploded at the Hit Factory studio in New York. Members of G-Unit and Murder Inc. got into a wild clash, and during that fight, 50 ended up getting stabbed. The rivalry wasn't just music at that point. It was personal, messy, and dangerous, and it set the stage for everything that came next. Murder Inc. rapper Black Child later admitted he was the one who stabbed 50, but he claimed it was straight-up self-defense because he thought someone was reaching for a piece. Irv and Ja ran with that moment and later accused 50 of filing a protective order against them, using that claim to paint him as scared for years. But when the actual court records came out, it showed 50 never filed anything. The NYPD issued that order automatically after the studio fight. Then just a few weeks after that stabbing, everything went dark again. In May 2000, 50 was sitting outside his grandmother's house in Queens when he got hit 9 times in what looked like a carefully planned attack. It was a cold move that almost took him out, and the fact he survived still shocks people today. But here's the strange part. Even though 50 lived to explain what happened, the details around that shooting have always felt cloudy and full of unanswered questions. His own version of the story became legendary in the streets. He said he got ambushed in broad daylight, took 9 shots, and still managed to walk away with a new kind of strength. That moment shaped his whole image, surviving anything, pushing through everything, never folding. Later on, a federal investigation connected Queens figure Kenneth Supreme McGriff to the situation, claiming he planned the attack after 50 dropped the song Ghetto Quran, where McGriff's name got mentioned directly. That track caused serious tension, and many people believed it sparked retaliation that changed hip-hop forever. McGriff had deep ties with Irv Gotti, and their connection wasn't just casual. It ran all the way through the streets and the industry. In 2003, Irv and his brother Chris Gotti were hit with federal charges, claiming they were laundering McGriff's dirty money through Murder Inc., a case that sent shockwaves everywhere. The headlines were wild, and the whole music world watched closely. Both brothers ended up getting acquitted in 2005, but McGriff didn't get that same outcome. In 2007, he was hit with a separate case and got sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for a double hire, trafficking, and racketeering. It was a heavy fall, and it locked him away for good. But even with all the street stories floating around, neither McGriff nor anyone connected to Murder Inc. ever faced charges relating to the shooting of 50 Cent. 50 always said the attack was a calculated hit, but McGriff never said a word. He stayed quiet for decades. Was it loyalty? Was it strategy? Or was he just playing the game the way the streets taught him? No one knew. But now, almost 25 years later, McGriff suddenly decides to break his silence. And he isn't speaking to confess or clear the air. He's talking to tell his son, Kenneth McGriff Jr., to stay quiet. This came right after Kenneth Jr. publicly called out 50 Cent, accusing him of building his whole success off his father's legacy and saying the McGriff family should be getting royalties for it. But during an appearance on Ebro in the Morning, 50 brushed that idea off instantly and said nobody outside the 5 boroughs even knows who Supreme McGriff is. That comment stirred things up fast, and it's what pushed McGriff to finally step in and say something. But that comment had McGriff Jr. heated, and he clapped back on Instagram with a long message that shook the room. He said, "How can you say Preem is not the reason for your success? Your storyline in the industry was guy gets shot 9 times, he lives. That's like a movie script. So of course people are going to buy into your story. You were the underdog, but you were scared of them. You were scared of Jimmy. You were scared of my pops. You were scared of Lil' Kim's baby father. You were talking nobody knows Preem outside of the 5 boroughs. But when I go to different states, I get the red carpet. Preem and Jimmy Henchman are a major part of your story, bro. They helped catapult you to the next thing because your songs is trash. And that issue did with Jam Master Jay, that was boo-boo. You're really mad because Preem wouldn't F with you?" McGriff Jr. didn't stop there. He added even more heat in the caption, saying, "I can't even tag this clown because he blocked. But if Eminem and Dre didn't sign you, absolutely nobody would care about anything you did." The name of your album is called Get Rich or Die Trying. His whole message came off bold, raw, and personal, like he was determined to defend his father's name at all costs. The way he delivered those shots made it clear he felt 50 was downplaying the impact of the people connected to that old era, and he wasn't letting it slide. The back and forth energy was intense, and it showed just how deep these old storylines still run today. McGriff Jr. kept the pressure going, saying, "I never met somebody who bragged about getting hit. You need to thank Preem, Murder Inc., and Jimmy Henchman for making your storyline. You owe us 30% of all royalties. You donkey." Ebro didn't even ask him anything about Preemy. That man lived rent-free. His energy was wild, and he clearly wasn't holding anything back. But he didn't stop there. He later went off again in an interview, calling 50 weak and saying he was never a real street figure. Then earlier this year, after Irv Gotti passed away, McGriff Jr. jumped back into the spotlight and blasted 50 for mocking Irv's death, adding even more tension to a situation that was already messy. That's when the OG himself, Kenneth McGriff, stepped in from behind bars and told his son to chill out, cut the online back and forth, and keep his mouth shut. After decades of silence, this was the first time the world heard McGriff speak on anything connected to 50. And it wasn't the shocking reveal people had waited years to hear. He didn't confess to anything, he didn't deny anything, and he didn't break down what really happened. Instead, his message showed this was all about power, legacy, and controlling a story that's always been bigger than the streets and bigger than the truth itself. No matter who actually pulled that trigger, the aftermath is what changed everything. 50 getting shot became one of the most unforgettable survival stories in music, a moment that reshaped his entire image and pushed him to build something massive. That life-changing hit ended up giving him the drive to create Get Rich or Die Trying, the album that turned him into a superstar. But here's the twist. Even with all the noise, all the interviews, all the back-and-forth posts, one thing stays the same. Nobody from that era is giving up the full truth. Every person tied to the story moves like they're protecting something bigger than themselves, and that's what keeps this whole situation alive decades later. The streets keep guessing, the fans keep debating, and the legends only grow louder. 50 built an empire off surviving that moment, turning pain into power, and he never backed down from telling his version with confidence. But the people on the other side, the ones his story brushed up against, still feel like their names got dragged into history without their say. That tension is why these old wounds keep opening up again and again. And now, with McGriff finally speaking after all these years, the energy around the story has shifted. He didn't clear anything up. Instead, he showed that the fight is now about who gets to shape the legacy, not who did what on that one day in Queens. That silence he kept for 25 years wasn't fear. It was strategy. Meanwhile, 50 keeps moving like nothing can shake him, still talking his talk on social media, still clowning anyone who takes a shot at him. And because of that, every time someone brings up the past, it sparks a whole new wave of drama, new interviews, new reactions, new tensions spreading across the internet. This story isn't ending anytime soon. It's turning into a battle over reputation, history, and who gets remembered as the real shot caller in one of the most legendary chapters of hip-hop. What makes all of this even wilder is how the new generation is jumping into the drama without even living through the original chaos. Younger fans only know the headlines, the documentaries, and the music. But the people who were actually around back then remember how heavy the streets felt. Back in 2000, things weren't just arguments online. People were really getting hurt, careers were crashing, and whole neighborhoods were choosing sides. But today, the internet has turned those old street stories into entertainment. And every time something pops up, everyone rushes to pick a team like it's a game. That's part of why the storyline keeps growing. Every new comment gets dragged across social media. Every interview clip gets turned into a meme, and every old rumor turns into a trending conversation overnight. And through all that noise, 50 still plays his role perfectly. He laughs at the drama, throws a slick comment here and there, then moves on like it's nothing. That attitude keeps the spotlight on him, and honestly, it keeps people hooked because they never know when he's going to drop another jab that starts a whole new wave of reactions. Meanwhile, McGriff Jr. is talking like he's carrying the weight of his family's history, trying to protect a legacy he feels has been twisted and flipped for entertainment. And that's the core of this entire chapter. One side feels they built their success through survival. The other side feels their name was turned into someone else's storyline. What's clear now is that the fight isn't really about the past anymore. It's about who gets the final word in a story that refuses to die. Get Rich or Die Trying became one of the most iconic rap albums ever, and it all came from a moment where 50 was supposed to fall, but somehow got back up stronger than ever. He moved like he had 9 lives, and the whole world watched him flip a near-death hit into a money-making empire that shook the entire music industry. Now, the real question is this. What's your take on Supreme McGriff's alleged link to the shooting? Do you think it was strictly a retaliation move over Ghetto Quran, or do you feel there's a deeper story still hiding in the shadows? People have debated this for decades, and every angle feels like it could lead somewhere wild. Drop your thoughts below, because this saga stays mysterious, and you won't want to miss the next story that's coming up.